Say your car breaks down, and the repairs are going to cost you a few $100s. How would you pay? In 2022, a Federal Reserve survey found that about a third of Americans couldn't cover a $500 expense out of pocket.
When she asked the question, how would you pay? You should have an emergency fund, but as we know, a third of Americans can't cover a $500 expense out of pocket, and a little more than 2/3 of all Americans can't cover a $1,000 expense out of pocket.
There are a lot of bigger picture reasons for that, but this video is going to look at something really specific: the actual routes that Americans in this situation typically take to get that money, and how much each of them might cost down the line.
Question of the day is a pretty simple one. Do you have a fully funded emergency fund? And if not, why? This is an excellent video that I really wanted to share with you guys because it talks about money from a perspective that we really don't talk about all that often online, right? We see all the time people, talking about how bad the economy is, how high the cost of living is, how nobody can afford anything anymore. And when we typically have those conversations, we talk about it from a perspective of preparation, of this is what you shouldn't do. We don't very often see people talk about when people are actually put in that situation. Here's what they typically do. These are the options that they typically default to. So I'm gonna probably do a little bit less talk in this video because I want to get through this in a timely manner and respect you guys' time. But I actually want to let the video play through and go through all 6 of these options that they break down and give a little bit of perspective on it. I'll give a little bit of commentary.
That same 2022 Federal Reserve survey described 6 basic non-cash options that respondents said they would use to cover an unexpected expense. But how available each of these options are to most Americans and how much they actually end up costing varies.
Right.
Let's look at availability first. Most of these paths require you to deal with some kind of bank or institutional lender, both of which have histories of excluding people without existing lines of credit. If you want to avoid that, you have these 2 very basic and straightforward options. Sell something or borrow from someone you know.
Okay, so yes, these should be the first options when you're put in a situation where you need to come up with some money. Now, I will tell y'all, in my opinion, this borrow from someone you know, man, listen, don't loan money to people and don't ask anybody to loan money to you. The easiest way to mess up a relationship with a close friend or family member is money. Now, personally, in my life, I've never been in a situation where I had to borrow money from someone I know. If I was put in a messed up situation, I just found some way to make it work. And I was usually always in the mindset, like, if I can't hustle it up myself, then it's probably something that I don't need and I'm gonna just have to go without it. Now that I'm a little bit older, I'm in a position where I'm pretty blessed financially. I'm very blessed to be in the situation that I'm in. And I do regularly have people asking me for money. I take the Kevin O'Leary approach. If y'all don't know what I'm talking about, Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, Mr. Wonderful, has gone on record saying that when somebody asks him for money, he's cool with giving it to him. However, the caveat is you can only ask me for money one time in your life and never again. If you ever get any more money out of me, it'll be a gift and it'll be just because I felt like doing it just off of the love. And that's how I typically conduct, giving out money to people. I don't do loans. If I feel like giving it to you, I'll give it to you. I'm going to tell you straight up, don't ask me for it again. But the moral of all of this is, y'all, don't sacrifice or don't mess up any personal relationships in your life. Don't burn any bridges because of something as insignificant as money. Money is insignificant but extremely important at the same time, because a lot of the time it's something that you can control if you take the proper steps in your life, but it's also something that can destroy your life if you don't take the proper steps.
These routes might have an intangible cost, but they won't require any approvals or credit checks, unlike the rest of your options. Borrowing from a bank is perhaps the route with the highest barrier to entry. In order to be approved, you'll have to have really good credit and put together a pretty detailed application, and be able to prove you have the income to pay it back. And a lot of banks have a lending minimum of $1,000, which means more money to pay back later or taking the time to find a bank with a lower loan limit. Credit cards are slightly easier to get, though it varies depending on the card. About 82% of Americans already have one. But if you don't, it'll take some time to be approved and receive your card. Same thing.
And I will tell y'all straight up, listen, stay away from loans and credit cards as much as possible. I'm not about to get on here and go full Dave Ramsey and say don't ever borrow money for anything ever in your life. Only pay cash with anything. Don't have a credit score, because that's not realistic for the average American, right? Realistically, the overwhelming majority of people are going to get to a point in their life where when they want to buy a house, they're not going to have $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 cash just sitting up ready to go, ready to purchase a house cash. They're gonna need a mortgage. And if you want a decent interest rate on a mortgage or on any other loan you're gonna take out, you're gonna have to have some kind of credit history. And the easiest way to build credit history is to just get a credit card. Now, I'm an advocate for secure credit cards. When you're dealing with these credit cards, you don't want to be like all of these people online that are credit card hacking and trying to get free airline miles and doing all of this stuff. Keep it as simple as possible. The name of the game in finance, in personal finance in general, is to keep it as simple as possible. We used to say KISS in high school. Keep it simple, stupid, or keep it stupid, simple, however you say it. But simplify your finances as much as you possibly can. There absolutely are times where credit cards and these bank loans can get predatory. But if you keep it as simple as possible, it'll be easy for you to spot when something's not right or this is something that I shouldn't be engaging in.
The bank loan, meaning they might not be viable for covering a time-sensitive expense. And then there are these two. At first glance, you might call them the easy options. You can go into overdraft or allow your bank account to go into the negative, which not every bank allows, but if yours does, you generally don't need to apply for it. We'll come back to this one. Finally, there are payday loans. They're short-term loans from businesses set up specifically for that purpose, marketed as a sort of advance, bridging the gap until your next paycheck. They are easy to get and come through fast, with no credit checks or collateral needed. Virtually anyone can be approved, which is why...
Let me tell y'all something. Overdrafting accounts, those two options that they just mentioned, overdrafting your account and getting payday loans, both of these are the devil. Do not ever in your life engage in a payday loan. You know something I've heard, you know, as I've grown up, it's a reason why payday loan places are so plentiful in the hood. You feel me? In lower income neighborhoods, in lower income areas in various cities. If I'm keeping it real, it's a borderline predatory practice because they're trying to give you an easy out to avoid personal accountability when it comes to your financial situation. This is why preparation is so key. This is why it's so important to be intentional with your finances early on in life, because it's not a matter of if something's going to happen, it's when something's going to happen. And when something happens to you, your mind doesn't need to default to let me find the nearest payday loan place.
People turned away from the bank and credit system often find themselves here. With all of these paths, there are costs and obstacles. But this one in particular is bumpy.
With digital...
There are people in my life, and I'm going to go ahead and skip through this ad because that's what this is. There are people in my family, I know people personally, y'all, who payday loans and overdrafting accounts, along with, you know, being missing credit card payments and being late, has nearly destroyed their life. Like there are people in my family that are, you know, late 50s, 60s, some even 70s, who in their lifetime, they probably will not recover from irresponsible financial decisions made early on in their life. And that's why I wanted to bring a video like this to you guys, because it's such an important conversation to have as early on in your life and in my life as we possibly can.
These two are likely to cost you the least down the line. If you sell something, you may need or want to replace that object eventually, but you'll have no outstanding debt, and you won't have to deal with interest or fees.
Right.
And if you borrow from a friend or family member, they may not necessarily charge you interest at all. So your interest rate, in bank speak APR or annual percentage rate, could be zero or close to it, meaning your debt won't grow while you're trying to pay it off.
Right.
These paths are where it starts to get more complicated. Generally speaking, when it comes to institutional lending, the easier something is to get, the higher the interest rate, and thus the total cost will be.
That's
but how
facts.
that debt grows can vary.
That's why the difference in interest rates in credit cards versus loans is so vast. Typically, you're not going to take out a loan from a bank for anything and have a 22% interest rate. That significantly higher interest rate is a regular occurrence on many credit cards nowadays, especially if you already have bad credit.
Take overdrafts. There is technically no interest charged on these, just a fee, something like $35. But every time you go deeper into your overdraft, the bank will charge another fee. Meaning, if you use the card for even a $1 expense, like a coffee while you wait to pick up your car, it'll cost you another $35. Bank loans have an
And personally, I bank with Navy Federal. My account is set up to where I can't even overdraft it, like if I wanted to. So, yeah, I would encourage you guys to do the same. Don't even let that be an option for
average
yourself.
interest rate of about 12%, which is considered fairly low, as well as set payments and loan lengths, meaning you can know how much the loan will cost you from the get-go, as well as how long you have to pay it off. So, for a $500 expense, you might pay it off every month over 2 years, and spend in total about $565.
That's actually
there are
crazy.
also fees to apply if you later miss a
It take you 2 years to pay off $500. Why?
payment, etc. So that number can fluctuate. Credit card interest rates vary, but let's say yours is 24%, about average. Unlike loans, payments are flexible above a certain minimum payment. Say yours is $20. Each month, you can pay anywhere between that and the full balance. If you only pay the minimum the first month, by the next month, about $9-ish in interest will be added to your debt. The more you pay per month, the less you'll end up spending in the end, and the less time it'll take you to pay it off. But keep in mind, you pay interest on the interest, not just on the original debt. So
Right.
if you keep paying the minimum and this $500 is your only debt, it'll take you 3 years to pay this off. And end up
And this is why, again, I'm an advocate for the Dave Ramsey baby steps. This is why that debt snowball thing is so important, which is that when you have a whole bunch of debts, you line them up from smallest to largest, and you go all in on one at a time. You put all of your money into one at a time, because if you're just paying the minimum payments, it's gonna take you forever to make any progress on the debt. And if the interest rate is high enough, eventually it'll probably start to outpace the minimum payment that you were making.
costing you $700. Then there are payday loans, which work a little differently. They're advertised as short-term, meant to be paid off with your next paycheck. But they have exceptionally high interest rates, about $15 per 100 borrowed, or about 400% when annualized.
Right.
So in just 2 weeks, you'll owe a total of $575. And if you can't pay all of it, you'll basically start this whole process over and owe an additional rollover fee, all due in just 2 more weeks. Which is why payday loans are considered predatory, and
Exactly.
a third of all US states have outlawed them. They're basically designed to turn into a debt spiral. The risks and hidden costs of these paths together make
So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and cut it right there. Link to the original video is down in the description if you want to take a look at it for yourself. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments below. I can't wait to get your feedback, read through the comments, and see what y'all have to say about it.